Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most ordinary moments. This is about Marcus Wellington, a 32-year-old tech billionaire who thought money could solve every problem, until he met someone who proved him wrong. Marcus had everything most people dream of. A penthouse overlooking the city, a company worth billions, cars that cost more than most people's houses. But if you looked closely, really closely, you'd notice something missing. He ate alone, worked alone, lived alone. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Marcus was reviewing quarterly reports at his favorite coffee shop when he heard a conversation that would change everything. At the table next to him, Elena Rodriguez, 28, sat across from a bank representative, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Please, I just need more time. My mother's treatments are expensive, and I'm already working 2 jobs." The bank representative's response was cold and professional. "Miss Rodriguez, we've extended your mortgage 3 times. The foreclosure notice has been filed. You have 48 hours. Elena's hands shook as she clutched a worn envelope. "This house, it's all I have left of my father. He built it with his own hands when I was 5. Please." Marcus tried to focus on his laptop screen, but her words kept breaking through his concentration. He'd heard sob stories before, usually from people wanting investments or donations. But something about Elena's voice was different. Raw, desperate, real. The bank representative packed his papers efficiently. "I'm sorry, Miss Rodriguez. Business is business. The auction is scheduled for Friday morning." After he left, Elena sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the foreclosure notice. Marcus watched her shoulders shake as she tried not to cry in public. She gathered her things slowly, like someone walking to their execution, and whispered to herself, "I'm sorry, Dad. I tried." Something inside Marcus's chest tightened. He'd grown up poor, dirt poor. His mother had cleaned offices at night just to put food on their table. He remembered the shame, the helplessness, the way poverty made you feel invisible. Before becoming successful, he'd made himself a promise. If he ever had the power to help someone the way he'd needed help, he would. As Elena stood to leave, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives. He approached the bank representative's card that had been left on the table, noting the bank's name and Elena's full name from the documents she'd forgotten in her distress. That afternoon, Marcus walked into First National Bank wearing a casual outfit, jeans and a simple shirt, looking nothing like the billionaire he was. He asked to speak with someone about paying off a mortgage debt for Elena Rodriguez. The teller looked confused, but after some back and forth, Marcus was directed to a loan officer. "I want to pay off the mortgage for 1247 Maple Street, Marcus said simply. The loan officer, Mrs. Patterson, raised an eyebrow. "Sir, that's $184,000. Are you family?" "No. I'm just someone who can help." Mrs. Patterson had seen many things in her 20 years of banking, but anonymous debt payoffs were rare. "I'll need to verify funds and—" Marcus handed her a black card. Within 30 minutes, Elena Rodriguez's mortgage was completely paid off. Marcus left specific instructions. The payment was to remain anonymous, and Elena should be told only that someone who understood her situation had helped. Elena stared at the phone in disbelief. She'd been folding laundry at her second job, a small laundromat, when the bank called. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" she asked Mrs. Patterson. "Miss Rodriguez, your mortgage has been paid in full. The deed to your house is clear." Elena's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on a plastic chair. "There must be some mistake. I don't have that kind of money." "No mistake. Someone paid the full amount yesterday afternoon. They wished to remain anonymous." For 3 days, Elena tried to solve the mystery. She called everyone she could think of, distant relatives, old friends, even her high school guidance counselor. No one knew anything. The bank couldn't provide details due to privacy laws. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself thinking about Elena constantly. He'd solved her immediate problem, but something nagged at him. Had he really helped, or had he just thrown money at a situation to make himself feel better? He began researching Elena Rodriguez. What he discovered made his chest tight again. Elena worked as a morning shift barista and spent her evenings cleaning office buildings. Her mother, Carmen, had been battling cancer for 2 years. Elena had sold everything of value, her father's tools, her mother's jewelry, even her own car, to pay for treatments not covered by insurance. The house Marcus had saved wasn't just a house. Elena's father, Miguel Rodriguez, had immigrated from Mexico with nothing but determination. He'd worked construction for 15 years, saving every penny, and built that house room by room on weekends. It was his American dream made tangible. Elena lived there now with her mother, and Marcus learned she'd been sleeping on the living room couch for months, having converted her bedroom into a makeshift medical room with a hospital bed and equipment. This wasn't just about money. This was about legacy, family, and the kind of love that builds houses with bare hands and sacrifices everything for the people who matter most. Marcus began driving by the house. Not to intrude, he parked far down the street, but to understand. The house was small but immaculate. Elena had planted flowers along the walkway, and there were wind chimes on the porch that her father had made from old pipes. Everything spoke of care, of love, of a family that had little money but rich hearts. On Thursday evening, Marcus saw Elena arrive home from her second job at 11 p.m., exhausted but stopping to water the flowers before going inside. Through the window, he watched her help an older woman, her mother, walk to the kitchen. Even from a distance, he could see the gentleness in Elena's movements. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He donated millions to charities, funded hospitals, and supported causes around the world. But none of it had felt as important as this moment. Watching a daughter love her mother enough to fight banks, work multiple jobs, and never give up hope. He realized he'd been living his life wrong. All his success, all his money, had created walls around him. He'd forgotten what it felt like to care about individual people, to let someone else's struggles matter more than quarterly profits. Elena was determined to find her anonymous benefactor. She printed flyers with her phone number, asking anyone with information about the mortgage payment to contact her. She posted on social media, asked at the coffee shop, even put a notice in the local newspaper. "I need to thank this person," she told her mother one evening as they shared dinner at their small kitchen table. "And I need to know why. People don't just give away that much money for nothing." Carmen Rodriguez, despite her illness, smiled at her daughter's stubborn determination. "Mija, maybe this person doesn't want thanks. Maybe they just wanted to help." "But why me, Mama? Why us?" Marcus saw Elena's flyer at the coffee shop where he'd first overheard her conversation. His stomach dropped. He hadn't expected this. In his world, anonymous donations stayed anonymous. Recipients sent generic thank you letters to foundations and moved on. But Elena was different. She couldn't let it go. For a week, Marcus avoided the coffee shop. But on the following Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after he'd first heard Elena's voice, his curiosity got the better of him. He needed to see her again, to know if paying off her debt had really helped or just created new problems. Elena was there, at the same table, but this time she wasn't alone. A woman in her 50s sat across from her, weak but smiling. Her mother, Marcus realized. Carmen had insisted on coming to the coffee shop to meet the people in Elena's world, even though the trip exhausted her. Marcus ordered his coffee and sat 3 tables away, pretending to work while listening to their conversation. "The doctors say the new treatment is promising," Elena was telling her mother. "Without the mortgage payments, I can afford the co-pays." Carmen reached across the table and squeezed Elena's hand. "Your father would be so proud. You saved his house, Mija." "I didn't save it, Mama. Someone else did. Someone who's probably forgotten about us already." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Forgotten about them? He thought about Elena every day. Her strength, her dedication, the way she'd sat in that chair fighting for her family's legacy. "I just wish I understood why," Elena continued. "Was it random kindness? Did they know Papa? Are they watching us somehow?" Marcus felt exposed, as if Elena could see right through him even from across the room. He closed his laptop abruptly, the sound catching Elena's attention. She looked over, and for a moment, their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or just curiosity. Marcus looked exactly like what he was. Successful, well-dressed, slightly out of place in the neighborhood coffee shop. Elena studied his face for a moment longer than politeness dictated. Marcus left quickly, but the damage was done. Elena's instincts, sharpened by years of reading people during her customer service jobs, told her something was significant about that man. That evening, Elena couldn't stop thinking about the stranger in the coffee shop. Something about his reaction when she'd mentioned her benefactor. She decided to return every day at the same time, hoping to see him again. Marcus, meanwhile, realized he was in trouble. Not financial trouble or business trouble. Emotional trouble. He cared too much about Elena Rodriguez to stay safely anonymous, but he cared too much about her to reveal himself and potentially complicate her life with his world of wealth and media attention. Elena's persistence paid off. On Friday morning, she saw the mysterious man again. This time, she was ready. After he ordered his coffee, she approached him directly. "Excuse me," Elena said, her heart pounding. "I'm Elena Rodriguez. I think you might know something about what happened to my mortgage." Marcus looked into her eyes. Really looked, for the first time. They were dark brown, filled with intelligence and determination, and completely unafraid. Standing this close to her, he could see the exhaustion she carried, but also the strength that had kept her fighting. "I'm sorry," Marcus said carefully. "I don't know what you mean." Elena sat down across from him without being invited. "You were here 2 weeks ago when I was talking to the bank representative. You've been here several times since, always watching, always leaving when I look over. And just now, when I mentioned my benefactor, you looked guilty." Marcus realized he was dealing with someone much more observant than he'd anticipated. Elena hadn't just been saved by his money. She was smart, determined, and completely unwilling to let this mystery remain unsolved. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," she continued. 2 weeks ago, I was about to lose my father's house. Someone paid off my entire mortgage anonymously. That someone is either you, or you know who it is." Marcus sat quietly for a long moment, studying her face. She deserved honesty, he realized. She'd been honest about her struggles, her fears, her love for her family. The least he could do was return that honesty. "My name is Marcus Wellington," he said finally. "And yes, I paid off your mortgage." Elena's eyes widened. She'd expected confirmation, but hearing it still shocked her. "Why?" "Because I heard you talking about your father building the house with his own hands. Because you were fighting for something that mattered. Because..." Marcus paused, struggling with words. "Because I grew up poor, and I remembered what it felt like to be helpless." Elena stared at him for a long moment. Marcus Wellington, the tech guy? The billionaire who's always on magazine covers. Marcus winced. "Unfortunately, yes. You were sitting right here, listening to the worst moment of my life, and you decided to... What? Fix it. Like I was some charity case." The hurt in her voice cut through Marcus deeper than any business rival ever had. "No, it wasn't like that. I wasn't trying to." "To what?" "To play God. To decide who deserves help and who doesn't." Elena's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from other customers. "Do you have any idea what it's like to have your life turned upside down by some stranger's whim?" Marcus realized he'd never considered this perspective. In his world, problems were solved with money, and solved problems were good things. Period. "I was trying to help," he said quietly. "I heard you say the house was all you had left of your father. I understood what that meant." Elena's anger faltered slightly. "You understood? My mother cleaned offices at night when I was growing up. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with no heat in winter. When she got sick, we lost everything because we couldn't afford medical bills and rent." Marcus looked down at his hands. I built my company so I'd never be that helpless again. And so that maybe, someday, I could help someone else who was. The anger in Elena's eyes shifted to something more complex: surprise, understanding, and something that looked almost like sympathy. I'm not a charity case, Elena said firmly. I'm a person who was solving my own problems until you interfered. How? Marcus asked genuinely. How were you going to save the house? Elena was quiet for a moment. I was going to take out loans against my mother's medical equipment. Sell her medications back to the pharmaceutical company. Find a third job. She paused. I would have figured something out. Marcus heard the uncertainty in her voice, the bravado covering up fear. But he also heard something else: the absolute determination of someone who never, ever gave up. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I should have asked first. I should have found a way to help without taking away your agency. Elena studied his face, looking for sincerity. She found it, along with something else she hadn't expected: loneliness. This man had more money than some countries, but he sat alone in coffee shops, eavesdropping on strangers' conversations because he'd forgotten how to connect with real people. I need to pay you back, Elena said finally. Marcus almost smiled. Elena, you make maybe $30,000 a year working 2 jobs. I make more than that while we've been sitting here talking. You can't pay me back. Then I need to do something. I can't just accept this. Why not? Elena struggled to articulate feelings she'd never had to explain before. Because it changes everything. Because I don't know what you expect in return. Because my father taught me that everything worthwhile requires work, sacrifice, earning it. Marcus understood. Elena's pride wasn't about money, it was about maintaining her identity, her values, her sense of self-determination. What if, Marcus said slowly, instead of paying me back, you helped me with something? Elena raised an eyebrow skeptically. What could I possibly help you with? I've been successful at building companies and making money. But I've been terrible at building relationships or understanding what really matters to people. Marcus gestured around the coffee shop. I eat alone, work alone, make decisions alone. I've forgotten how to connect with people who aren't trying to sell me something or get something from me. So maybe you could teach me how to be around people without walls. How to care about individual stories instead of just statistics. How to help people in ways that actually help instead of just making me feel better about having too much money. Elena looked at him suspiciously. You want me to teach you how to be human? I want you to teach me how to be the kind of person who deserves the life I've been given. Elena was quiet for a long time, studying Marcus's face. She saw sincerity there, but also vulnerability that she suspected few people ever witnessed. My mother is having surgery next week, Elena said finally. The new treatment I mentioned. I'll be at the hospital for 3 days straight. I could use help with small things: feeding the neighbor's cat, watering my plants, making sure the house is secure. Marcus nodded. I can do that. And there's a community center where I volunteer on weekends, serving meals to families who need them. They're always short-staffed. I'd like to help with that too. Elena smiled for the first time since she'd sat down. You'll have to serve food to people who might recognize you from magazines. People who might have opinions about billionaires volunteering in their neighborhood. Good, Marcus said. Maybe that's exactly what I need. Over the following weeks, Marcus kept his promises. He fed Elena's neighbor's ancient cat, watered her flowers, and spent 3 days at the hospital bringing Elena coffee and sitting with Carmen when Elena needed to go home to shower and change clothes. At the community center, Marcus learned to serve food without judgment, to listen to people's stories without trying to fix everything, and to understand the difference between charity that maintains dignity and charity that destroys it. Elena, meanwhile, learned that Marcus's wealth didn't define him any more than her struggles defined her. She discovered he was funny, thoughtful, and surprisingly humble. He asked questions about her father's construction work, her mother's treatment, her dreams for the future, and he listened to the answers like they mattered more than any business deal. 6 months later, Marcus knocked on Elena's door, not as an anonymous benefactor, but as someone who had earned the right to be there. Elena opened the door and smiled, flour in her hair from baking bread with her mother, who was now in remission. "Hi," Marcus said. "I brought flowers for your garden." The woman at the nursery said these would do well next to your father's wind chimes. Elena looked at the seedlings in his hands, then at his face. "You know what, Marcus Wellington? I think my father would have liked you." "Really?" He always said the best people are the ones who understand that everything worthwhile requires work, sacrifice, and earning it. "You've been doing that work." Marcus smiled. "I had a good teacher." As Elena led him toward the garden where they would plant flowers together, neither of them thought about the mortgage payment that had brought them together. Instead, they thought about the future they were building. One conversation, one shared meal, one act of genuine care at a time. The house that Miguel Rodriguez had built with his hands had become something even more precious. The foundation for a love story built on mutual respect, shared values, and the understanding that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They can only be earned, nurtured, and chosen every single day. Marcus had learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in connections. Elena had learned that accepting help doesn't diminish your strength, sometimes it multiplies it. And together, they discovered that the most extraordinary love stories really do begin with the most ordinary moments. A conversation overheard in a coffee shop, a hand extended in help, and two people brave enough to see past first impressions to the hearts underneath.